All right, let's talk about humanity's absolute favorite thing to do, flexing our massive, wrinkly brain power. I mean, we're a species that literally thrives on designing unbelievably complex microarchitecture and high-tech gaming engines. So let's dive into this explainer, because the contrast we're going to look at today is truly mind-boggling. We spend so much time right now stressing out about modern technological problems, but today we are going to look at what humanity has historically been up against and how our survival instincts haven't always exactly matched our engineering brilliance.
To really understand the scale of our technological genius, just think about early 3D gaming. We designed the PlayStation's Geometry Transformation Engine, the GTE, as a highly specialized math processor. Mounted as the second coprocessor, this thing was built to perform vector and matrix operations, perspective transformations, and color equations. And all of this was supplemented by a CPU operating at 33 megahertz and a blistering 30 million instructions per second. 30 million!
And that brilliantly illustrates our progression. Just look at the Nintendo 64. The incredible graphics of that era were produced by the Reality coprocessor. This massive chip designed by Silicon Graphics running at 62.5 megahertz. It's packed with a Reality signal processor and a Reality display processor to handle clipping, culling, and 32-bit fixed-point vertex calculations. We literally built custom hardware architecture that executes lighting calculations and geometry transformations with absolute, terrifying efficiency.
But here is the hilarious kind of terrifying irony of it all. We have this insane 32-bit and 64-bit computing power capable of building entire digital realities from scratch. Yet, when you look back at our history and our folklore, it becomes aggressively apparent that for most of our existence, our ancestors had the survival instincts of a moth in a bug zapper. Like, we've managed to turn almost everything into a high-stakes delete button for our existence. Before we were stressing about AI safety and digital takeovers, our ancestors were dodging absolute nightmare fuel. The crucial point here is that while we worry today about robots turning the lights out on us, humanity used to be terrified of mythical monsters that make a robot takeover look like a relaxing day at the spa.
Part 1. 3 mythical monsters that want to delete your soul.
First up, straight out of Malaysian and Indonesian folklore, we have the Pontianak. Frame this scenario in your mind. You are taking a midnight stroll in Malaysia, maybe enjoying some soup in the dark. Suddenly, you catch the delicate cry of an infant and the really subtle scent of flowers. You look over, and standing gracefully beneath a beautiful banana tree in the moonlight is a young woman in a flowing white dress. She's got silky raven black hair and, as the legends very specifically note, a highly alluring figure.
But seduction is just the bait. If you actually approach her, that delightful floral scent instantly turns to pure putrescence. Her soft, pale hands sprout razor-sharp nails, and her delicate face reveals bloodthirsty fangs. See, the Pontianak has a purely physical attack style. As a symbolic gesture for the child she could never bear, she will use those talons to tear right through your trembling tummy. She literally loots your liver and kidnaps your kidneys for one incredibly simple reason. They just taste good to her.
So, if you want to survive, here is your ridiculous historical survival guide. Step 1, probably don't approach crying women in the dark. Step 2, check her feet. Legends say the Pontianak has incredibly gross feet, which is your giant red flag to hightail it out of there. Step 3, they apparently absolutely hate the sound of cannon blasts, so, just happen to have a literal cannon on you. But the fourth and definitely most effective method, you have to get behind this spooky spirit and jam an iron nail directly into the nape of her neck. This is her literal factory reset button, rendering her completely docile.
Let's leave Southeast Asia and jump over to the forests of West Africa for our next creature, the Suso Bouncum. Guys, this is the OG jump scare. The Suso Bouncum is a giant, gangly, ape-like devil with a slender torso and dark or red fur. It has jaws capable of swallowing a human head in a single gulp, and it uses these iron hook feet to grip the branches of the forest canopy in Ghana. When it spots a traveler down below, it literally wiggles its fingies in delight before making its move.
When it finally strikes, it drops from the tree limbs to snatch you up. If you're caught unawares in the dead of night, its monstrous arms will envelop you in what is literally known as the deadly death hug, crushing your bones and internals before you can even react. So how did we survive this vampire monkey man? Well, ironically, we can thank excessive cocoa farming. Since the 1950s, Ghana has lost a majority of its primary forests to cocoa farms, and since the Suso Bouncum thrives in trees, destroying its habitat essentially deleted the fictitious freak. Thanks, chocolate.
For our third monster, we're switching over to Japanese folklore to introduce a ghoul known as the Teke Teke.
This creature was actually born from an absolute tragedy. A young woman who fell, or was maliciously pushed, onto train tracks and failed to get out of the way in time. The result? A vengeful spirit that is exactly 50% lighter, but 100% angrier. You'll know she is coming because of the distinct slapping sound her hands make on the cement as she walks on them, which is exactly how she got her onomatopoeic name.
Now, if she approaches you, she might ask you a very simple question: where are my legs? It acts almost like a visual jump scare right in the middle of the street. But listen to me carefully here. This is a trick question. Do not, under any circumstances, try to answer it. If you see a ghostly girl lumbering towards you on her hands, your first and only instinct should be to 180 the hell out of there. But here is the truly terrifying part. Despite having no legs and being restricted solely to her arms for movement, she is incredibly fast. She is noted to be fast enough to catch up to speeding cars. If she gets a hold of you, she uses a small scythe, a razor-sharp nails, to crack you open like a football Sunday beer can, treating you to a fate exactly similar to her own.
Part 2, High-Octane Oopsies, Deadly Historical Trends.
Okay, so we survived the mythical monsters, but what about the threats we created for ourselves? Let's pivot this explainer from mythical horrors to the incredibly stupid ways humanity has voluntarily put themselves in danger purely for clout. Long before anyone was doom-scrolling on their phones, the dopamine-deprived people of yore were obsessed with something far more dangerous. I am talking about the original extreme social media, flagpole sitting. Yep, it is exactly as boring and as deadly as it sounds. People were absolutely obsessed with planting their posteriors on pillars and poles.
Let's track the bizarre evolution of this trend, because it's wild. It actually started way back in the 5th century with Christian ascetics called stylites. A guy named Simeon the Stylite sat atop a pillar palace in Syria for 42 years seeking salvation. Fast forward to 1924, and semi-professional stuntman Alvin Kelly does it outside a Philadelphia department store on a friendly dare, and people actually bought tickets to watch him just sit there. He hit a personal best of 49 days. This ridiculous trend continued all the way until the 1970s, when a 72-year-old professional pole sitter named Richard Blandy tragically fell to his death after a record-breaking 125-day stint.
And honestly, the physics of this problem are brutal. If you look at an ADSR sound envelope graph from the PlayStation Sound Processing Unit, which is normally used to chart audio attack, decay, sustain, and release, you can actually repurpose it for our flagpole sitters. It perfectly and completely inappropriately charts the exact moment a sitter loses their balance. At the peak, right before the decay phase, that is the exact moment a flagpole sitter's potential energy converts into kinetic gravitational acceleration directly toward the pavement. One slippery overcorrection, and the ride is over.
Let's break down exactly why this was a high-stakes delete button for your existence. You were 200 feet in the air, requiring absolute perfect balance while dealing with extreme sleep deprivation, a complete lack of nutrition, and total exposure to harsh weather. But you know what finally killed the trend? The Great Depression in the 1930s. The stunt completely lost its appeal because, well, it's really hard to laugh at someone struggling and starving on a pole 200 feet in the air when the entire country is struggling and starving at ground level anyway. Which brings us to our final, provocative thought for this explainer. If we possess the 64-bit brain power to build complex digital realities, calculating perspective transformations in sub-pixel lighting in milliseconds, why does our actual human history look like a glitchy, terrifying survival horror game? So, the next time you find yourself stressing out over modern tech issues, like excessive pipeline stalls or a slow Wi-Fi connection, just take a deep breath. At least your liver isn't being looted by a banana tree babe, and you aren't starving on top of a 200-foot flagpole for loose change. Thanks for hanging out with me on this explainer, and I absolutely can't wait to dive into the next topic with you.